Today we have Annemarie Stolting joining us. We are going to be having a discussion about that hustle and grind culture. Annemarie is passionate about living an intentional life full of meaning and purpose. She hosts the podcast Let's Slow Down, a space for meaningful discussions on the benefits and daily habits of slow living. She lives out in the country of New Jersey with her husband, three children, and two rescue dogs. Annemarie, that does not sound slow. Tell me, how have you found this idea of slow living amidst the hustle and bustle of modern life?
Oh, well, thanks for having me today, Emily. That's a very loaded question. It's a constant work in progress because there is a lot of living going on over here these days. And I just came to a point where I felt like everything was moving too fast. When your kids are little, everyone says, "Oh, you're going to miss those days. They're crazy, but you'll miss them." And it's so true. I mean, I still have little kids. My youngest is only 8, but things go by in a blur. And when you're super busy and very scheduled and have a zillion things going on and going on in your head too, you can't be present for any of it. So I hit this point. My oldest started high school this past year. And I was like, how did that happen? I don't know. Isn't she, still a little girl? No, she's not. And it really made me take a pause and rethink how we're doing life over here. And I just felt like I wanted to make every minute count. And yes, we're going to still do a lot of things. They are very active kids. We're an active family. Those are things that add a lot of joy to our life, benefit. But I think there can be too much of a good thing. So we have consciously been working on choosing the things that mean the most to us to commit to and trying to put some of the other things aside that maybe we were just kind of doing to do, and just sort of rethinking, how to spend our time and energy to make the most of life.
I love it. I know that a lot of people listening to this are parents and
Mhm.
feel very busy. And so, what you just said brought up a few questions for me. And the first is making change amidst kids, like changing your family culture with kids who are used to something. So was that a conversation that you had as a family? Was it just something that you slowly kind of dripped in? What did that look like?
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation that we have often about what we're going to choose to add and maybe to drop. Um, I'm not going to force my ways on the rest of my family, my husband, my 3 kids, but I think that we had to sort of come to some common ground on what serves us all best. And do we really want to be doing all the things that we're doing? So for example, I use this example a lot. We have very busy fall schedules just with the sports that they choose to play, and the back to school. No matter how prepared you are, I feel like September is always crazy because just getting off of that summer routine and back into the school routine. So there's that. Just everything starts back up. So fall's really busy for us. And then spring is really busy for us for similar reasons. And it was spring, it's the end of the school year, all the things that come with that. And then the spring sports and things like that. So we kind of talked about it. And the 2 out of 3 of my kids that do the fall and the spring, I said, I know you might want to play basketball or do this or do that, but we can't do it all. So if the fall and the spring sports mean the most to you, then we're going to take a little break in the winter. And for me personally, that works great because I live in New Jersey. It's gloomy and gray, and it's a tough time of year. It's getting better now, but when it's dark at 4 o'clock, it just messes with my mind. I want to hibernate and not be running around to all the activities as the Uber driver that I am most days. So that's been a way that we've compromised. And I think just communicating with everyone in the house is important. I think it's important for many reasons, not just slowing down. but really communicating the why behind it and explaining to them how I feel and where I'm coming from, as I am the main person doing all the running around for them since they can't drive yet and get themselves places. So once I did that, it things changed because they understood a little bit more. Oh, okay. Well, where mom's coming from. And I feel that as a parent, it's our job to really model what healthy living looks like. And I don't think it's healthy to be running around like a nut all the time, frantic. So I was there for a while, just I just kind of fell into it. So I said, I need to make a conscious effort not to be modeling that kind of behavior for them and model other things like it's okay to take a break. It's okay to rest. It's okay to go to bed early or just say, I'm not up for this thing today. Those things are okay. And we have we're slowly moving in the right direction.
I love that. I think you're modeling so many things for the kids. First is empathy. Like when I hear you talk about like just helping them understand how I was feeling. And so then all their needs aren't just about them and what they're trying to get out of life,
Right.
but also working like in coordination with the person who's helping them get all the things out of life. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, because, as a kid, you don't think about that. You just
Of
think about
course.
going to do the thing, not like, but she's got to get me there. And then she's
Right.
got to pick me up and get the things that I need for that sport or whatever the activity it is. So, yeah. So I mean, I think communicating in general is just something that is so important. And we could all probably always be working on, just be more mindful of it. Be careful how we choose our words, especially with kids. And it goes a long way. It's worth that extra effort.
As you were talking about modeling rest and slowing down and what a good lesson that is, that's a lesson that I've learned for myself personally, I guess in layers. Like when I attended my health coaching school, like 12 years ago, I learned about slowing down to eat and really put your body into rest and digest. And so that's something that I've always taught my clients and try to practice myself. It's really easy to like be scrolling on a phone or
Yes.
being mindless when we eat. Um, and there's a whole piece with that that's actually fascinating. But I noticed that I don't really allow myself time to rest in other parts of the day. I didn't used to. I'm getting so much better. I'm really changing this because I've seen how it like really wears down my body. I had signs of adrenal fatigue and all those things. And even with taking care of myself, just stress can pile on and we can stay busy, especially as an entrepreneur
Yes.
in my own
Yes.
work. I feel like I can work and work and work endlessly. It's a joy to love my work, and sometimes I need to break. But the point I was going to make is as much as I'm trying to do this, I have noticed for myself how triggering it can be just to see my kids sitting around. And I think we have this narrative. I'm curious what you think about this. I hadn't thought about it too much before this, and I certainly haven't talked about it, but I feel like we have narratives maybe as moms who are busy and in the hustle and grind culture that when our kids are sitting, that they're being lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you were talking about modeling rest for your kids, I was like, oh, that's so that is such a good lesson. Like I talk to my kids about getting a good night's sleep and getting to bed
Sure.
early and like the
Mm-hmm.
nighttime. But the rest at other times of the day is fine too. And maybe it's about
Yes.
tuning into your body and listening to what you need and deciphering the difference between boredom, right?
Mm-hmm.
And actual like fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Yes,
have
that's
thoughts
very
on that?
important.
Yeah. Or is
Yeah,
that a
I
trigger for
think,
you if your kids lay around?
well, what's funny is that as you're saying that, it's not even a little bit. Um, yeah, if they're going to sit around in front of the video games for like 2, 3 hours, then yes, they generally just don't have the time to do that. If it's like a Saturday and there's nothing going on, fine. It's the weekend. You're a kid. If they're supposed to be getting homework done, or there's other things that they have obligations to do and they're in front of the TV, that's one thing. But if they are choosing that way to sort of unwind and decompress, I'm okay with that. But it is a trigger. And I'm just realizing it as you're asking me this. When my husband does it, it drives me nuts.
Right? Isn't that interesting?
Like,
Yeah.
I'll be loading the dishwasher and I'm like, wait, he's watching TV? What?
Yes.
He's watching football? And I get so fired up. And then I have to talk myself down. And I used to get annoyed and put that on him. Now I still may think those thoughts, but I do stop myself because I realize I'm just jealous. I'm just jealous because
Mm,
he can turn it off. He can turn the dishes off for a few minutes in his mind and go sit, because he just worked a long day. He's been running around all day. He deserves to sit and watch a game if that's what he needs. If he's interested in doing that, that's okay. And
yeah.
I realize I'm like, I'm just jealous that why these dishes are bothering me. And I feel like I need to put them in the dishwasher before I can go sit. So sometimes I walk away. Sometimes I just walk away.
Mhm.
That's a new thing for me. And eventually, I think sometimes the kids are like, oh my gosh, what is happening in this kitchen? And they kind of start helping. So I
Uh-huh.
sort of, I didn't realize I'd be tricking them into helping, but that does occasionally happen. A lot of
That's
times it
amazing.
doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's funny how, yeah, I guess it's like the other adult. I guess you feel like we're
Yeah.
all supposed to be, but
Busy. Yeah.
yes. But it's something, I think I was raised that way. My mom and I are very different. My mom does not sit down. She actually said it drives her crazy to sit down. I don't understand that. We think very differently. She never sat. And I realized not too long ago that that was what was modeled for me as a mom, as someone who's kind of running the house. She never sits, even now when we're all over there and she makes big meal for everybody and has all the family over. We're like, Mom, sit down and eat with us. And she's always go, 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 go. Or if she does sit, it's got to be right by the door and back into the kitchen to do all the things.
Hmm.
So it takes a while to sort of relearn things that have
Yeah.
been, taught to you, not necessarily intentionally, but modeled for you for a long time. So yeah, we are learning, but I am the mom who occasionally tells the kids, you know what? Your homework's good. Sometimes they get a little stressed with
Yeah.
all the homework and the grades and everything. I'm like, I think you've had it. I think you should just go sit and watch a show and just rest for a little bit. And I think that's okay. And I think it's important to let them know that it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's interesting. I just had this conversation with, I have a freshman in college, and she was getting ready to load herself with all sorts of things this term, and what she was going to let go of was her time at the gym, which is her stress relief.
Yes.
And so
Can't let go of that.
we had that conversation of like, your life is going to be busy for like ever. You're going to be able to choose to overload yourself, but like really learn how to find that balance now. It's interesting how I just think this whole conversation is interesting, and the point you're bringing about like feeling annoyed when your husband sits there. That's another narrative that is, I mean, I think every friend I have that's married has complained about that, right? And it's as though we have to earn the right to rest,
Right.
right? Like it's not
Right.
just
That's how we
okay.
think. Right.
Yes.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So we definitely need to reframe that, because we don't need to earn it.
No, we don't need.
We have earned it. We have earned it. Like,
Yes.
let's just agree on that.
Yeah. It's just a birthright to be able
Yes.
to feel relaxed
Yeah.
and to
Yes,
rest, right?
it is. And we forget. It's so simple.
What are some of the benefits that you have noticed from making this switch? Because, okay, well, before we get there, prior to deciding to be mindful and slow down, what was life like for you?
Life was hard. Life
Hmm.
was really hard. There's always going to be challenges, but life was really hard and life was not enjoyable.
Mm,
And that was where I really finally was like, no, it was such a grind all the time, every minute. I was I was burned out with a capital
yeah.
B. And it took me a while to realize that. And I was actually at the point where I wasn't, I have these three beautiful kids. I have a great husband. I have two awesome dogs that will go for a walk. I shouldn't even be saying that word out loud because they're going to be coming running in here. And I was getting so caught up in all of the to-dos that that was sort of taking the priority, and I had to stop and really realize too that if I take care of myself, and I know as new moms, all those baby books always say, make sure you take time to rest, because if you feel good, you can be a good mother, and you can. And there is some truth to that. And when you have a newborn and you're not sleeping and you're dealing with all of that, especially for the first time, that seems like insane advice,
Yeah.
impossible
Hmm.
advice.
Yeah.
So as I've, been a parent for much longer now, I've learned, like, it's true. If my mood is, all of our moods are contagious. So if I am feeling just tapped out, I have no patience, I don't feel good, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything, I'm not present, I'm always distracted. So who's winning? I
Yeah.
couldn't find one person winning in that scenario. And I was living like that for much longer than I'm not even sure how long, but it was too long. And it was not, I wasn't conscious of it. I just kind of thought, well, this is how it is. And I had even gone to the doctor a few times, like, maybe something's wrong. Why am I so tired?
Mm-hmm.
And everything was fine. And I found myself, and this is very telling. I remember coming home from the doctor, and they had done blood work and everything. And I came away hearing that I was fine. And I was like, I don't want to say disappointed, but I was confused,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I don't feel fine at all. And but they're telling me I am. They're telling me everything's checking out. So I started going to therapy, because I thought, okay, I think this is like some mindset stuff. And I kind of thought about doing it for a long time, and I had done it years ago for a little while, and it was good. I had nothing against it. I just, like, kind of felt like I don't have time for that. So once I realized, okay, physically, they're telling me I'm okay. Let me go see if maybe I can see if I'm okay mentally. And a lot of things came up, and I did realize that I was just pushing myself too hard. Not not for anyone's fault but my own. It wasn't coming from anybody else. It was just the way I was wired. And it's been really helpful to learn how to rewire those thoughts and think of things differently, and just stop putting so much pressure on myself. So it's been really, really helpful.
And I'm curious, you say that's the way you were wired. My guess is it's more nurture than nature. So in your family, is that how you were
Yes.
like got attention and given praise and
I think
shown?
it was just sort of what was expected of me as I
Yeah.
grew up. So that's all
Hmm.
I knew. And then I never stopped to think otherwise. I
Yeah.
just didn't. I just didn't realize there was another way.
Yes.
And I think I was so busy and distracted that I didn't have the, like, capacity in my brain to even tackle that. So,
I really
yeah.
think we wear, especially we used to. I think this is maybe the pandemic has changed this, but I feel like pre-pandemic we wore busy like a badge of honor.
Oh, absolutely.
And now
Yes.
I feel like it's exhaustion that I don't know if it's a badge of honor, but almost like the busy badge just turned into exhaustion like over the course of the pandemic, you know?
Yes.
Just
Yes.
complete burnout. Just
Hmm.
I'm chronically tired no matter how much I sleep or
Yeah.
yeah,
And just going to get one good night's sleep is not going to fix it all.
right.
It's
Yeah.
not just going to be, if this has been going on for years, there is no quick fix.
So true.
And it's going to take a lot, might, even if you're doing all the right things for you at this time, it's not going to happen overnight.
Absolutely, because now you're dealing with impacts of like excess cortisol and how that impacts your estrogen and progesterone. It just becomes this big, much bigger tangle.
Yes.
Hmm.
Yep. So, yeah. So it was definitely, it's been a real process for me.
So then I know that you have said in the past that like, or maybe you said it right in the beginning of this of our recording, is that like you can enjoy life now. So I imagine like that's one of the biggest benefits, right? You said you weren't enjoying life before,
Hmm.
and now you're enjoying it just by being having less on your plate, being able to be present to the moments.
Yes.
um what are some other benefits that you've noticed?
just overall feeling better. I feel calmer. I don't feel like my mind's racing all the time, which translates to better sleep.
Yeah.
And that makes everything better just by getting a good night's sleep. And I've just noticed I have a lot more patience with everybody in my house, which is important. I was even getting stressed out with the dogs. I mean, it's like, that's ridiculous. They're really pretty good. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel that I'm able to, things still happen. I mean, we get every day, there's something that we're faced with, right? And I've just learned that I have a choice with how I respond to it. Take a minute and then make a mindful decision to, how much I'm going to let that impact me, whether I can just be more flexible. And I can be more flexible because I feel calmer. So I'm not just like
Yes.
reacting so quickly without thinking. So I would argue that I bet you if you ask my kids, they'd say I was different.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I have a lot more patience, and that makes for a better relationship overall.
I mean,
So
everybody benefits, right?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So how do you suggest people start? Like people that are feeling busy, like, oh my God, I don't even know like where can I give? There's just I don't have any options. These are all demands that I can't give up. If I drop a ball, like who's gonna juggle it for me?
right.
What's your advice?
I think the first step would be just to take a little break, like maybe an hour. I'm not saying you have to take a week and go, on a retreat. Just
Mhm.
right. Just take a little bit of time where you can hear your own thoughts. And then once you do that, things start to become a little bit more clear. I've been learning a lot about what kind of fuels me, what gives me more energy, and what is depleting. So if you look at all the things you're committed to, just look at your calendar. Are all of these things really building you up or building up someone in your family? So, if it's a sport that I'll use football because I have one son and he loves football. He loves it. He's so into it. It's a big commitment for all of us, but he really loves it. So it can be frustrating at times, having such a big commitment for something. But when I see the joy that it brings him and when I see all of the benefits he's getting from it, that helps me realize, okay, this is worth it. So if there's an activity where your kid's like, I don't feel like going to this today, or because we always have those and it's good for them to try things, but okay, maybe we take that away then because it doesn't mean that much. And maybe you start to do things a little differently. Um, let's take meals. Meals are stressful for me. Dinner, if I could have someone just, if I could just have a healthy dinner up here every night, I would be thrilled. That stresses me out. But just keeping things more simple, just having like the go-to meals, having stuff in the freezer that you can quickly heat up, and just it doesn't have to be gourmet. It doesn't have to be. I think what I'm trying to say is I don't know about everyone, but I made things harder than they had to be, a lot of things. So once I realized, okay, well, it's not cooking dinner, it's that maybe I'm trying to cook all these different things all the time or whatever. But if I keep it super simple and keep it to the things that I know everybody eats, because that would annoy me too if I spent time and then this one doesn't like it, this one doesn't feel like it, then you're just frustrated. So just pick the things that you feel okay as a parent, putting on the table at night. You feel like, okay, I'm giving them something nutritious. It didn't kill me to make it. It's easy enough. And we're not a restaurant. We don't have to go nuts. So that's just one example, just trying to simplify things. So maybe all the things are really important, but maybe you can tackle them differently.
Mm. Perspective
And
is everything with that, right?
yes,
Hmm.
yes. So I think that would be the first step. But I would bet that if you took a few minutes and looked, talking to the person who just feels really tapped out and that nothing can give, I would imagine something could give.
Hmm.
Or even if you just decide, okay, well, I'm only going to devote 1 hour to whatever this thing is, and whatever I can do in that hour, that's going to have to be good enough for that day because I can't, my health I can't sacrifice any more of myself for that, and see how it goes. And I think sometimes when we drop certain things that we think we're going to miss, we don't miss them as much as we, initially thought we would. So
I know it's so true. You're like, wait, what was that thing I used to love to do? Like it's replaced by something else that fits better.
yeah. Yep.
And this is reminding me that, if you're listening and you have a partner in your household, it opens up a whole conversation about opening that conversation. When my husband and I recently went to couples therapy, one of the first thing the therapist said is like, each write down your mental load list. Wow.
Yeah.
What a difference in the mental load. But that's a
I'll
that's a
bet.
great area to be like, I need help just, with this mental load
Yes.
and what it means for it to be like not a mental load, like fully trusting that you're taking this entire piece and I can actually like let it go is it's something that takes like a lot of tweaking and working, but it's
Hmm.
well worth it.
Yes.
Because as women who often, whether we work at home or work outside of the home, like we do tend to carry the household's mental
Hmm.
list,
Yes, we do.
and it's nice to share that.
Agreed. I think
Yeah.
that goes back to the communication. Sometimes
Yes.
just letting them know, because I realized a lot of the stuff I just wasn't sharing. He
Right.
didn't know it was stressing me out as much as it was.
Yep.
And he's not home as much as me, but all the running around just taps me out. Like I
Mm.
feel so drained by the end of the third or fourth trip back and forth. It's amazing how many miles I can put on my car, not leaving my town.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Uh-huh.
And it doesn't stress my husband out as much. Again, he's not here as much to do it, but we talked about it. And when he is around, he he takes more of that on now
Yeah.
because it doesn't, it affects him differently.
Right. Right.
So
Hmm.
figuring out what those things are, um, the cooking thing, he's not good at that. That's not
Yeah.
his wheelhouse. So fine, I can take that on. I'm figuring out how to do it in a simpler way, but there's other things that he takes on. I don't tackle the lawn stuff. He does it. He can do it quicker and easier than I can. So trying to figure all those things out and recognizing that we're all trying really hard
Yeah.
and we're all doing a lot of things. But yeah, that mental load list, that's an interesting way to put it. And I'm going to be thinking about that because it's so
Yeah.
true. And I think we do carry more. And that's the reason why, my husband can sit on the couch when there's still dishes everywhere and I can't, because I'm carrying that with me and he's able to shut it off. And that, in my opinion, is a superpower that I would like to learn how to have.
Right. Yes. Um, So I know that you're very much sounding like in process with your
Hmm.
simplifying your meals and with all this because it's not just a decision you make and then you're done. It's a
Right.
constant effort, right? And kind of fighting against the current of culture, which is busy and fast paced. But with meals, and so not to put you on the spot, but I think it's really helpful for people to hear like what is one thing that you have found or a couple more if they're top of mind that have helped you in the kitchen and getting a meal on the table with less stress.
Yeah. I would say I think that meal planning is a great idea. I'm not that good at it. But I would suggest that if anybody is savvy with that stuff, I would imagine it's super helpful. I have tried to avoid, I feel like I used to run to the store a lot more often because I had like no game plan. So I try to have a couple, at least dinners figured out before I go to the store so that I at least have the ingredients for some simple things for a couple days out. And like one really quick, easy thing, I just made it the other day and everybody eats it every time I make it. So I make it kind of a lot, but we love Mexican food and I just do like ground turkey and I cook it up and then I've a cheat. Another cheat is like the bagged coleslaw mix. It's just
Mhm.
shredded cabbage and I think carrots. Super easy. So put a lot of those in. You can do it as like a salad. You can do it as a taco, a burrito, whatever. Everybody, all 5 people in my house eat that and like it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and, guacamole, and there's plenty of healthy things in there. So I make that pretty often. I feel like I always have ground turkey in my freezer. I always usually have like the stuff for that. So it's easy enough. If I have nothing else, I know I can usually throw that on the table and it doesn't take long and everyone's eating it. So I guess trying to find more things like that, that and just be a little more conscious of the stuff you have on the shelf, like some canned things, just some things that, you could throw a meal together if you need to, because sometimes even, we plan to go to the store and things happen and you can't. So having a few basics in the freezer, a few things on the shelf that are cans or whatever, pasta or something that's quick and easy, shelf stable. I think that that's really helpful. And then, okay, well, at the very least, we can have that tonight. And maybe it's a super simple meal, but no one's going hungry. No one's starving. Everyone will be fine. Kids like the basic stuff better. I mean, I remember, and then breakfast for dinner. That's easy. Can do that once in a while and the kids don't complain. But when my kids were really little, I remember my husband was working late, and I remember I was getting the dog out. I was trying to just do all these things. I was working full time at the time. I gave them Cheerios for dinner because I was just like, I'm just exhausted. It was a really long day. And I don't know, I think my daughter was like 4. And she's like, Mom, this was the best dinner. I loved it. And at first I thought she was being like condescending. I'm like, oh, she's fine with this. She's happy. She'll be fine if she has Cheerios tonight. It's not the end of the world. And I remember being a little defensive because I felt wrong about it in my head, but I'm like, they're fine. They're toddlers. They can have Cheerios for dinner once in a while. Yeah. It's all good.
Yeah. So that idea of like also giving yourself grace in the midst of it all,
Totally.
right?
Yep.
And a sense of humor.
Yep.
Right.
We need that.
Yeah.
We need that.
Yes, for sure. I have some questions I definitely want to ask you, but I'm curious if there's other things that you feel like are important for listeners to hear about slow living, like
one other thing that I think is important that people don't always associate with slow living is decluttering. I think for me, it goes hand in hand with slow living. Is I am careful to use the word minimalism because I kind of, if I lived alone, I think I would be a minimalist, but it doesn't serve everybody in my house. It's just not the most realistic thing right now with 3 kids, very different ages and everything like that. But decluttering. So I'm a firm believer that our outer environment very strongly affects our inner mindset and how we feel overall. So I have found that not that I don't have anything on my counters or anything like that, but just having things kind of simple, having a place to put things away, teaching the kids that, going through your stuff and getting rid of things often. I donate a ton. My husband tells the kids if they sit still too long, they might get donated. That's like the big joke in the house. Like, oh, if you're sitting on that couch too long, Mom's putting you in the donate box. So I try to be good about not just throwing everything out. Usually it's easy enough now with different places you can drop stuff off. And I have a pickup scheduled when I get those cards in the mail. I almost always quickly just schedule it because I'm like, they're coming to my house. It doesn't get any easier than that. And I know I'll have a few boxes by the time it's always a few weeks out. So I have one next week and I have stuff in the garage ready to go. And this way, try to be good stewards of the earth and not just throw things away that are still could be used by someone else. I donate, same thing with a lot of the clothes and things like that. There's a local bin. It's like a consignment type shop where I've gotten my kids many things there. I'll pop in once in a while. They have tags on them.
Yeah.
I mean, how often do we buy stuff and then the kids just outgrow it before they can wear it? Or, we get too many gifts and things. So I try to donate the better stuff there because I know that it's all for a good cause and it will be reused. I don't want to just throw things away. So I have found that if you're feeling really overwhelmed, and I also find for me personally, if I'm kind of stressed about something, cleaning a little bit can make me feel better. And I don't know if it's sort of giving me control or it's just sort of like instant gratification, like, oh, now the counter's clean and I just feel calmer. I think it's a little bit of all of those things because I don't really love cleaning, but I've just noticed a really big impact with that. And it makes things easier. I mean, we've probably all been there where, somebody, I don't know, neighbors or something pop over, and then you want to have them over, come in for a drink or visit, whatever. And we're like, oh my God, I'm mortified. Stuff is everywhere. Like, they came at this moment. Like, my house doesn't always look like this, but so, and I mean, hey, let's be realistic. Like, we're lucky we have a lot of living going on in our home. So if it looks like kids live there, that's okay.
Yep.
I'm not trying to look like we're a hotel room, but I think it creates more ease, and it makes things easier to keep clean and tidy when you sort of just don't have too much. So that would be something else that I would recommend people think about. And it can be as simple as like a junk drawer in the kitchen that gets out of hand after a while. If you just spend like 15 minutes and go through it, the next time you go in there, it just feels better.
So true.
So it's little things like that.
So I think the two big takeaways that I've heard from you are, if I had to distill it down to two, there's several more, but like take a moment to just sit with your thoughts
Yes.
and also just be observant of your space and notice where you could remove some items.
Mm-hmm.
So I've seen like, you know, challenges where you get rid of one thing a day for 30
Mm-hmm.
days. I think that's such a great for people that feel busy and like I don't have an hour to go through my closet.
Yes.
Um, just choose one thing that you could get rid of today. That
Yep.
takes probably 3 minutes, if that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly, once you do that, you're going to be like, oh, I have 5 things.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just
Exactly.
sort of thinking that way. And I do notice and you go through spurts, where you're really motivated to do it more often. And I try to take advantage when I get that feeling come over me. But it does make you think differently when you're in the stores too. Cause
Yeah.
how often, like Target, those bins when you walk in, they're geniuses. I know why they do it. But often when I'm in that mode where like, I don't need any more stuff, I'm here for X, Y, and Z, it does help me just get in and get out, go get what you need and
Hmm.
get out of there. And sometimes it's fun to look at, and if you're in that kind of a mood, and then do it. But
Yeah.
sometimes I know I'm just going to get sucked in and buy all these things that I don't need. And it's like wasted time, wasted money. And then you get home and you're stressed because you don't have anywhere to put that stuff. So
Yes.
it does
Hmm.
change the mentality, I feel like, with the shopping.
I love it. Simplify, simplify,
Hmm.
simplify, simplify, right?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
So good. So along the lines of simple, I think, my podcast is all about wellness, and people can really take wellness to a very complicated idea, this
Hmm.
nuanced approach that is almost inaccessible and too expensive. In my mind, wellness is very simple. It can be very simple. So I'm curious if there's like one thing that you do or that you think everybody that benefits everybody as far as wellness.
Yeah. I guess I have two,
Okay, you're
if I
allowed.
can share
Yeah,
two.
you can share too.
I think that sleep is really important. And I've noticed when I really prioritize that, it is such a game changer. And I think we can't afford not to. So if you think you're too busy and you can't get to bed earlier, I would argue that you can't afford not to get to bed earlier, because if you're really drained on a Tuesday and you push and stay up super late, guess what? You're going to be super extra drained on Wednesday. And then it's the snowball effect. So if you choose to just call it what it is, so that's kind of taking a minute and being more aware. Okay, I feel exhausted. I need to get to bed early tonight. I need to do whatever. I need to drop whatever I can today because this has to come first. Then you can regroup on Wednesday and you're fine.
Mhm.
And I also notice that with if I feel like a little cold or something coming, not always, but often, if you just stop right then and really recognize it and drink more water and rest, a lot of times you can kick it. If you fight through it, you're sick for 3 weeks.
Yes.
So, so that would be, I think that's the most important thing for all of it. And then the other one I was going to say was just maybe find some kind of exercise. Like you said, everything's so complicated, but just find something that you enjoy doing because you'll be more likely to do it. So, whatever it is, just make it fun if you and do what you feel like doing that day. Listen to your body. Some days I just want to walk the dogs extra far and call it my exercise, but I'm getting outside, I'm getting a good walk in, I'm getting my heart rate up. So that's okay. That's what I needed that day. And giving yourself the grace to go with it. I think it's important.
Those are great. Love it. Um, Also, let's talk about morning routines. I know that this has been an area of transition for you. So,
Yes.
once upon a time, I heard you say you were not a morning person. And I've also recently heard you say that you were up at 5 a.m. walking your dog with your husband, which seems like you've had a lot of growth in that area. So, tell me about that.
So, yes, I think I would have never called myself a morning person pretty much my whole life. Um, just if I go by just how I naturally feel, I can naturally stay up late. I know some people just can't. And I get that second wind a lot of times. And it would be very common for me to be up until 11, 12 o'clock. That was just normal. But if I don't have the luxury of sleeping till like 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to feel really tired. And on the random occasion that I would get up really early for something, and I was a teacher for a long time, so I was up very early, but it was usually frantic, like hit the snooze one or two extra times and it was just very frazzled. Those were difficult mornings for me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but on the off time that I was up really early, like maybe with one of the kids when they were newborns, and you're just up at these random times and you notice how peaceful and calm it is, like the world's not up yet. I love that. And I have always loved that when I've noticed it, but still wasn't enough motivation for me to put myself there intentionally every day.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, it's been a couple months now. My husband he leaves for work really early, and sometimes he gets home really late. So there would be times when, we don't see each other all that much during the week. And I would notice that when he did get home, a lot of times I was just so wiped from everything, all the events of the day, that like I didn't really feel like having much of a meaningful conversation. I kind of wanted to just get in bed, read my book, and crash. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, see you Saturday. So I said to him, I think I'm going to start getting up with you early. We have two dogs they're big dogs, they need walks. So he would always get up and just kind of walk them for a little bit. I'm like, I'm gonna try. And I didn't put too much. I'm like, I really don't know how this is gonna go. I got a little taste of it a little earlier over the summer. I met with a few friends, and actually, I'm just putting this all together now. But over the summer, a couple of my friends, my neighbors that are teachers, they started walking in the morning, and they said, "Well, we're gonna meet at 6, and you should come." And I'll actually never forget the day my one friend said this to me. I was like, I'm like, that sounds great, but I can't do that. I just can't do it. Sorry. She's like, "Oh, try. Why don't you once in a while?" And I kept thinking about it, and I'm like, I really would enjoy walking with them. Like that would be really fun. Um, they can do it. Why can't I do this? So I started doing it, and it was great. I would come home, I'd be refreshed. I got to like chat with my friends. We got a really good walk in. Sometimes we'd go like 4 miles, but we're chatting the whole time. So it's talk about making your exercise fun.
Yeah.
Like it was good. It didn't feel hard. And it was so fun that I looked forward to it, that I didn't have trouble. I mean, I was a little tired at times, but I got better at getting up then and doing it. We did it pretty regularly all summer. So I guess that was sort of what gave me a little glimpse of like, oh, there is something to this. And I like how I feel
Yeah.
when I do this. So I started trying it with my husband because I thought it would be nice to connect a little bit early and be able to just talk about what's going on with our day, or just have a few minutes. Sometimes we don't talk much at all. It's just we're tired still, but it's just peaceful. And he's not getting up, creeping around the house. Like, I mean, the kids are all still sleeping, but it's just like I would argue that he probably likes having like somebody to walk with in the morning and get up with. And it's made a difference. It's just made a difference to the point. And so what I'll do in my morning routine is get up around 5 and we walk for a little while. And then I'll usually do some type of exercise. Nothing too strenuous or crazy, but depending on the day, a little strength training, some yoga. I have a spin bike and an elliptical in my home gym. So sometimes I'll do a little bit more of that, but I don't know, like a half hour. I don't go crazy. And then I sit and I do whatever I need to do that day in terms for myself, not to-do list stuff, but to-do lists to do for me. So I always pray a little bit, and I oftentimes read a little Bible passage that is for me a really peaceful, nice way to start my day and something really positive to think about. And then I will usually, sometimes I'll journal a little bit, and sometimes I'll just kind of sit very quietly and meditate, or I'll read a little bit of, I like nonfiction. I love self-improvement kind of stuff. So if I'm reading fiction things, I usually do that at night before bed. But in the morning, I like to read something kind of inspiring and encouraging for the day. And it's made a really big impact on my overall mindset. And I just feel better, and I am more productive. I sort of just bang out the stuff I need to do because I feel like I'm more awake. So it's been really a game changer.
So cool. I love that. As a huge fan of the morning, and I feel like I really need that quiet time, my own time
Yes.
before everybody else gets up and has their demands of me. It's
Yes.
just for me to set my own tone is really important. And I
Yep.
love that you're reaping
That's what
those
it is.
benefits.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Because before, if you get up and like life just bombards you and everybody needs
Yes.
things right away, it just that sets the tone for the day. And it's
Yes.
hard to shake that.
Yes.
So yes, I agree. Having that alone time like that. If I don't, sometimes I don't really feel like doing much exercise. Like sometimes I am kind of tired, but I try to get that like solitude time no
Mhm.
matter what. So it is really helpful. It feels really good.
So good. I love it. Anne-Marie, where can people find you?
So my podcast is called Let's Slow Down. And you
It's
can
awesome. Speaking of like cleaning and not liking cleaning, you could like put in a podcast while you're cleaning
there you
and you
go.
could be learning lessons of slowing down while you do
Yes.
it. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So yeah, so Let's Slow Down. That's wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find it. And I'm not a huge social media person, but I am there on Instagram. It's Let's Slow Down 2023. So yeah, so check out the podcast if you're interested. And I would encourage everybody to think of a one thing they can do to make a little tweak to slow down in some way, whatever it looks like for you. Because slowing down, certainly, just like with exercise and wellness, it all looks different for everybody. But just to take that time to think about it and make those little tweaks, they can make a big difference.
It's so important. Thank you so much for coming here and
Yeah, thank
sharing your
you.
process and all of this. It's been great.